Welcome to another podcast episode of So You Woke Up. And I'm here with Meaghan Senn, and we are going to have another conversation of what it's like to live outside the matrix, outside of the norm, outside of whatever it was we were taught, and it was not actually real or any of that. So we're going to start out, and Meaghan, I just want to know what it was that woke you up and you were like, I ain't doing this anymore. This isn't it. I got to go a different way. Any of that stuff. What is your story?
Yeah. For me, it was being like so incredibly frustrated in my business as a generator. You know the story, but
Yeah.
like being like 4 or 5 months into my business, like almost $10,000 deep in like hiring business coaches and being fed the same like cookie cutter advice. And even like when I started getting into human design, I hired a business coach who like marketed themselves as like a human design marketing business coach, and that ended up being false. But getting like so frustrated about like hiring all these different spiritual business coaches who were still trying to like give these cookie cutter advice and like were like peddling like spiritual business but not guiding you to like use your intuition in your business to guide how you grow your business. And I was like, there has to be a better way. Like there's no way that like everyone else is doing it the same way and it's just like working, because it wasn't working for me. I was like, what is going on? And so it really dove me to like dive into human design and astrology, and then that just kind of like led into everything else and
Yeah, like
really,
a barreling
yeah,
of
like
just
really
like,
helped me understand like what my purpose is, what my business is here to do, how I'm supposed to be doing things in business. And that's what really changed everything and just helped
because
me
it
like,
changed to your life
yeah,
too, right? Like
yeah,
it
like changed
just,
my entire life to just like helping me really, because I had had my spiritual awakening before this, but it really took me, I think, into a next level of self leadership in my spiritual journey.
oh, yeah. So it was like you were awake and you were like, okay, so these people might know the way. And this is a big topic too about like when you wake up, you when you wake up, you don't know what's going on. Both you and me were raised in very religious families. So it was like going against that first, already a part of like, going against that because our souls choose this, going against that came into here. So then you're like, you had this awakening. So you're like, yeah, I definitely want to do a spiritual business. Like this is, whatever. And then you do go to find ways to do this. But you're right. I mean, especially for because you started like 3 or 4 years ago, right? That was when,
You know,
like,
5 years.
yeah. So, and then, so you're like, okay, these other people have started this. I want to watch, like, obviously, as generators too, we respond. So it's like, oh, what is this person doing? And you got to this point where it was like, why is none of this working for me? Why is none, and like you say, cookie cutter, but that's very real. Like, it's like this it's almost like the false light, like more like this thing of like people having this but it not being authentic, but has the spirituality thing on it. So you're like, well, this is, I'm spiritual business, you're spiritual business, this must work, but it's not working for you,
Yeah.
but it was working for them. So that was even more confusing. You were like, why is it working for them and not me? But, and as, the years went on and you see, as you said it right there, this person put this out and it actually was false. So it comes out, like later as you're in it. And so that right there comes to the point where you were like, oh, okay, so it was working for them. And now you see it too. Like half of them are struggling and they're not happy actually in their spiritual business. And you're like, I would love to be actually happy and in the spiritual business, which is a part of waking up too.
And I think what is like really interesting about all of this too is like the first business coach I hired, and her whole thing was like spiritual business, is like has since had her whole like go to Jesus, Jesus saved me moment, and is
Yeah.
now like her whole new business and brand is like how all of that spiritual stuff was like evil and how like Jesus
Yeah.
is doing. So it's like clearly those people weren't And I don't want to say that like what they're doing now isn't authentic to them and everyone goes through their own things in their spiritual journey, like whatever, but it's clear that like that person wasn't even in their own self leadership in their spiritual journey, because I like just personally think that a lot of people who make that kind of like switch are looking for something outside of themselves to like
Yeah.
heal them or guide them or tell them what to do. And so I think that and I think we're getting into this point in business in like the new paradigm where like a lot of that's becoming more obvious, and a lot of people are waking up to like it's not a following, like spirituality and spiritual business isn't about following someone else. It's about, if you do have guides and mentors and coaches and stuff like that, people who activate your own into like self leadership and act and like give you almost kind of like give you the guidelines of like here's how you could trust your intuition and follow that, not here just do repeat these steps that I give you sort of thing. And I think that's like, because in business it is like the ultimate like spiritual journey on steroids. Like it's gonna make you have to face
Yes.
every single shadow. And I've seen like so many like patterns and wounds and stuff from like other areas of my life that show up in business, and it's like you have to work through that and you have to lead yourself through that. And just repeating steps or like a strategy or structure or a system or whatever that people give you is not going to, it's not going to work for the long run. And you have to learn as a business owner, especially as a spiritual business owner, how to lead yourself not just in business but like spiritually. And I think that's why so many people are craving now people who really like provide or hold the space for people
Yes.
to do that, rather than someone to just tell them what to do. Because I know that sometimes we think we want someone to just tell us what to do, and then
Yeah.
we like go to someone like that and we do it, and like at first it might work because you're like, oh, this person is giving me the answers and telling me what to do, and like this is finally gonna work, and you see a little bit of like it working, but then for the long run it stops working. Or once you're no longer in that container with that person, it stops working. It's because it wasn't
Yeah.
coming from you. And this is why, like, if someone is in one of my containers, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not just going to like give you the answers. Like, I'm going to help you figure out how to use your intuition to get the answers, because I know that if I just tell you what you want to hear, or if I just tell someone what to do, it's not going to serve them in the long run. And I also don't want people to be reliable on other people telling them what to do. Like, I don't want anyone who ever works with me to rely on me to like guide
Yeah.
them and tell them what to do. Like, I want you to like trust yourself to make decisions, to
Yeah.
do what you want to do in business, and to get that like little intuitive hit of this is where I feel guided in business, or this is what I feel called to do in business, even if it doesn't make logical sense, and have the confidence to trust that and follow that, and not need some sort of external guidance to validate that for you or to tell you what to do.
Yeah, and it's really and that's the whole point when you say the person was looking for outside of themselves, that is the separation. Because at the end of the day, we are in charge. I mean, we're not separate, but we have individualistic qualities here. So we all came here with the soul and that guidance, right? So, like you said, another lady in my podcast said it too. She's like, there's people that can help you, like you and me. We're here. We've got the things, but we're going to guide you. We're not going to tell you what to do, because there's no way. And it's just because something worked for me doesn't mean it will work for you, but doesn't mean that if I'm in my authenticity and I'm like doing a program and I'm doing a thing, it's like that thing too. What resonates with you? Okay. So this may be a formula, but what part of it works for you? What works for you? What, and do this. And it is, and then the people that get frustrated are the ones who are looking outside of themselves. So it's not saying that like, don't hire a coach, don't hire a business thing. I have my channeling thing. And I was thinking like, I was really kind of like not wanting to put that up because I was like, oh, channeling, people have the answers inside themselves. But it came to me and it literally says on there, it's like the answers are inside you, but sometimes they need a voice.
Yeah.
So let's say someone's really struggling and they need a channel reading for me. And they're like, this is my question. Can you help me? I just cannot seem to get there. And then I will help you. And I will have this channeled message and it will come out. And then you take what you can from there, because from me is authentic stuff. I'm not trying to take your money to do any of this stuff. It's literally me wanting to help you with that. And I understand that sometimes I will go to Edward and be like, blah, 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 this is it. And he will projectorize me with that. But it doesn't mean that I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. It's just the human condition sometimes will get in the way, which is why people will come to you in their businesses. But you have this thing is like, you've said this question 6 times. I cannot help you.
Yeah, it's like, and well, and that's the thing with human design too. It's like we all have different gifts, and then we have our gifts that are like our defined gifts that are consistently ours. And then we have what I call like ebb and flow gifts, where like when you're not conditioned, and so anything that's undefined in your chart, when you're not conditioned there and you're operating in alignment, that is also a gift to give to people. But it's like within human design, our energy is looking for other people's energy that complements what we don't have in our chart, because they can give us some sort of gift that will then help us, because where we're undefined, we're taking that energy from around us, and we're meant to keep what does serve us and what is a gift to us, and let go of what doesn't serve us. And the problem is that a lot of the times we're doing the opposite of that. We're taking in everything because we feel like that's what we're missing, and we're letting it condition us. And I think that's where people like unconsciously people recognize, I don't have this consistent energy and this consistent like theme or whatever, I need it. So they get attracted to people who have that. But then those people aren't aware that, well, not everyone's like me, so everyone's going to work differently. And then they just get told, well, this is what I'm meant to do. And then it just turns into like all this conditioning of like shoulds and stuff like that.
Shoulds.
That like, okay, what can this person give me? And then what can I keep from it that works, and then let go of it, so that I can kind of like then channel it through what my gifts are, instead of trying to be like that person or do it the way they do it. Like, I have an undefined head center, so
Me
an
too.
ajna center, so like someone I can kind of like sit here and talk about my ideas and like ways that I might want to do things, and then someone who has those centers defined can help me kind of like piece together those ideas, or a way to then like plan those ideas
How
that
do I make this happen?
it's like so much more concise than like what I can do. And it's like, yes, I could get that gift from someone, but just because they do it that way doesn't mean I need to be that way. And so I think it's about learning how to, and I think it's just, we live in a world that like everything is still so one extreme or the next, black or white and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so people think, well, if I'm getting help from anyone, it's me outsourcing. And it's like, no, we need to find like this common ground where it's like, yes, follow our intuition and like individualism, but also where can you gain gifts from other people's gifts? It's
That's where
supposed
the
to be like this co-collaborative process, where before it was
yeah.
like, okay, either completely on my own individual, or like completely outsourcing something to someone to get help. And it's like, it doesn't have to be extremes, like it needs to like, they're like meet in the middle sort
The
of thing.
balance.
Yeah.
The
And I think
real
some of
balance.
that comes down to like also realizing that like we're all, there's no hierarchy. Like I think the days of like putting like hierarchy of coaches on a pedestal is like over. And I think that's what
Yeah.
really,
Because that's separation.
yeah, it's like, oh, well, because they've been in it longer, they're making more money or whatever, they're higher than me. But like, that's not necessarily the truth. Especially
Yeah.
like, I've coached people who like you, who like didn't even have a business yet, to people who are making like 7 figures in their business. We are all literally on the same playing field.
Same plane. It's
people
like,
people are making 7 figures, like, yeah, they've done something right or figured something out, or like, you know, some people have done it through alignment and some people haven't done it through alignment, but everyone still has self-doubt. Everyone still has moments where they're like, what am I doing? Everyone still has moments where they're like, okay, something's not working. Like, we all are like at the end of the day figuring this out as we go day
yeah.
by day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, we're not separate, but we have individual. And so when you're talking about that too, about like, this person can help me with that. Like, perfect example, Edward is completely, he's a projector. He's like super defined. I only have three defined centers. So this thing of like, it's like I go to him and then I take what resonates, but there's some times where there's a thing in my brain and I just can't. And then he'll say something and I'm like, ah, and then I'm like running to the things. So it's not like that one or the other. And those extremes too, I've been talking about somebody else that, Earth is about polarity anyway. So there's always going to be both. So there has to be balance. And when you have a polarity off, like something's like over here or whatever, and that comes to business, that comes to life. And you've talked about it too, about enjoying the human experience. All this stuff is like, you have to just realize that there is no separation, but there is individuality while being here on Earth. But also knowing that part isn't. So if we're not separate, that means that person over there very much could help you. They also could be a complete dick. There is fairness in that, but also if you're tuned into your intuition and your body and your stuff like that, you can tell that person is actually not being aligned or not. And it's coming really out now, like people who are not being authentic. And we've talked about this a lot, but like, it's just part of like, okay, these people can help me and I can let them, but I'm going to do that if it feels, and you can't get mad at a coach who's not going to tell you what to do if you really want to go to the moon or beyond or infinity or whatever, and so you're really talking about those things of like, and it's very hard too, especially when we wake up and we realize, for you, you're like, oh, I'm going to start a spiritual business. I'm going to do this stuff. And you like woke up again and was like, oh God, now I got to re-wake up because I'm already in the spiritual, but this is not it. Kind of matrixy way of running businesses. And it just wasn't working for you. I remember we were talking over time. You were like, I have cried in the shower. I'm like on my knees in the shower. Like, you know what I mean? Like you went through that and you're like, this cannot be the way.
Yeah.
And so you were like, I got to figure out something else.
And I think too, a really big shift for me in like my own mentor investment journey too was hiring people that really helped me grow and trust my spiritual gifts and intuition. Like that was really a shift because like the moments in my business where like I was crying in the shower, I was constantly being like, universe, just like make something work, was when like I was constantly surrounded by like coaches and mentors who were like always causing me to second guess my intuition because I would come to them with like, this is what feels right to me to do in my business, and it would get rebutted with like, well, like you shouldn't really do that and things like that. Like I remember one mentor I had, which apparently I must have blocked this out, but someone else who was in that program with me, who we became friends, reminded me that like I had brought up wanting to do like bring in like witchy vibes in my business, and this is like within year one in my business, and they were like, no, like that's too niche, like people aren't gonna be into that. But then when I finally actually like did that, like that's what really made my business take off, was just embracing that part of myself, and like that, like being like the weirdo business witch is like what people resonate with. And so it's like
Because it's who you are.
yeah, and so when I started hiring mentors who actually helped me hone in like trusting my intuition and like really mastering like my intuitive spiritual gifts, is when I stopped crying in the shower. I mean, I still have like my moments.
Oh,
like,
girl,
it's
same.
when I stopped constantly like not just second guessing myself, but like letting go. Because at the end of the day, it's not that serious. And two, like no matter how much we try and figure things out or want someone to tell us what to do and all this other stuff, we can't like speed up divine timing any faster. We can't control when or how things are exactly going to happen. Like, and
Right.
that, I think that's a huge, that's a constant mini little ego death that we have to kind of keep going through. Because, like, of
Yeah.
course, like, yeah, wouldn't that be, yeah, it would be nice if we could control all of that. But at the end of the day, like, I always remind people, we never know when and how something's going to happen until after. is then we
Yeah.
can look back and be like, oh, that it happened this way and it happened this time because like you yada yada yada. But like, before it happens, we can't fully know how and when until it happens. And so just like relax.
Surrender.
Surrender.
Yeah, and
Like
I mean, and it's hard. I
yeah.
mean, like you and me have had so many calls where we're both just like, what the heck? And we've had to literally just be like, you know what? Okay, surrender. And then we're like, okay, that actually, I let go a little bit, let go of the grip a little bit, you know. And so, like, and that's something you've literally helped me listening to me on call. I had no business. I'm hiring a business with no business. And I mean, I kind of do now, but like through that other thing, like figuring out what the heck has been, the road. And most of it's been surrender. It's literally been like, I don't know how or why. I know it will, but I don't know how or why. So I have to let go. I have to bring it in. I have to let myself just, you know, okay, it's just like you. I want to be a witchy thing. And someone's like, no. And you're like, oh, okay. Cause you're like starting out and you're like, whatever. And then lo and behold, like 3 years later, and all of a sudden it was like, I think it was you and me. We were on a call and you were like, because I was always like, girl, tell me this witches stuff. I'm here for that. And you're like, okay. So you started telling me, and you're like putting the thing, and there's a little response. And I think we were on a call, and you're like, I think I'm gonna switch over. And I was like, girl, yes. And you did, and here you are. And it's like the abundance is coming in. You're having so much fun doing what you're doing, and finally embracing a part of you that is so much a part of that. And that's another thing, pushing that down when you know that, I mean, whether it's light language and you want to speak that all day, or you want to be like, I've lit 16 candles today, or, whatever that is, that is the way. And that is where people get really caught up because they're like, well, someone told them that's too niche, that's too this. And they're like, oh, well, when I was a kid, yeah, my parents told me that was too, so that must be the way. Until we bust out of that programming, things will be wild. And that's what you had to do. That's why your business the first couple of years were like, I mean, you were learning stuff, you were making some, and you were getting clients, but it wasn't as much, and now the clients that come in are the ones that are exactly, but you had to really decondition and go against the matrix, go against what was supposedly the way, and be like, I've, this is it. And that's really busting out. And that can be applied to every part of your life that does not feel aligned or does not feel like something you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And I think people also, and like this is like my own like personal lesson too, is like really learning to get become like more in love with like the journey and the process and the creation part than like the destination and the results part. And I think that is like when I see people who are just experiencing a lot of resistance and stagnation, it's not that they don't know or have the skills to make it happen. It's that they forgot that they know exactly what to do because they're so obsessed with like, I just want it to happen. I just want to get there. I just want like, and it's like you will. Like if you just keep like we all will eventually. And that's like a huge breakthrough moment in my own spiritual journey within my business, was realizing I'll get there to where I ultimately want to be eventually. And even when I get there, I'll probably have dreamt up of like an even bigger vision for my business that then I'll be like working
It's
towards.
never ending.
It's never ending. So it's like, it's just, and this is something that I still have to like remind myself too, because like we all get into these moments. Like I think that's another thing too, and I talk about this a lot with human design. Is like it's not about perfectly embodying your human design 24/7. It's using it as a tool to recognize when you're doing something or focusing on something or whatever that's not in alignment with your design and bringing yourself back into alignment. And I think that's another thing too, is like people trying to achieve like this perfect utopian energy and life and reality and stuff like that. And so when like a negative thought pops up or a limiting belief comes up or something in their reality that's not what they want pops in, it's like then they beat themselves up and they get really discouraged. And it's like, but you can just change that in an instant by like
Yeah.
using these tools and following your intuition. It's not that serious. Like it's
Yeah.
part of the human experience. It's kind of like how what is the word Abraham Hicks uses for like the things that come up in our reality that we don't want. I cannot remember the word that
Oh
like they
my
use to
gosh. And it
describe it
was, yeah.
now.
Yeah. It was like,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I
but
know
it's
what you
like
mean though.
basically when like things come up in your reality that you don't want, instead of like letting it make you spiral, it's just kind of like a way for you to get more clear on like what you do want and like align your
Yeah.
energy to that.
Yeah. I don't want that. So what's the opposite of that?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? And the thing about that too is like, you know, and I remember reading the Abraham Hicks where they were like, your thoughts make your patterns. And I remember like hyperventilating and reading the book. And I was like almost about to like lose my stuff. And then the next paragraph was like, we give you a waiting period. I'm like, oh, what's a waiting period? It was like, we, we give you a time to change your thoughts. It's not like, oh, you think this bad thought and all of a sudden it comes in. And I was like, oh, because to
Yeah.
me, I was like, well, if this thing, and it's like, no, you have the choice to change it. And that's why that's like, well, if you didn't change the first or the third, you can change the sixth.
Yeah.
So that too, but that guilt and the shame and the things that come on, it's like, and the spirituality thing of like, there can be no darkness. And it's like, and it's like, I know some people that go like really into the darkness, and I'm like, you gotta get some light in there, bro. But like, but then like, if there's too much light, then there's no darkness. That's imbalance. And so let's say you're like always in the light and whatever, and there's no balance. That's what happens too. A thing will come, a thought or a thing or a situation, and you spiral because you're so concerned with maintaining a a high vibrational thing when living on earth at this time, because we're on earth school having an earth podcast of having, you know what I mean, like that right there is like, it's not, it's just not fathomable, I guess. And so accepting that, but knowing that that's not bad, that you can change it, that you can make the choice not to be a dick. Like you really can. Like, let's say you have a moment where you're driving down the road and somebody flips you off and you flip them off back, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't like that. And then you know what you do right after that? You'd be like, I'm so sorry. I mean, no one can hear you because you're in your own cars, but I'm so sorry. You know what? Actually, I'm actually sending you love right now. I know that I flipped you off, but I'm only human. And I'm actually just taking that back. I'm not going to just let that sit in there. Therefore, you've alchemized it. Both things have happened and the world's still spinning. So it's like, yeah, but then like, what if you're like, oh my gosh, I flipped that person off, and you're driving home and you start getting more mad and you're like, oh my gosh. And by the time you get home, you're like in there and you're like in the mirror, you're such a piece of shit, like in the mirror, like, I mean, like it spirals
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So you could choose to just be like, oh, I did not actually mean to flip you off. So, or I can be like, you know what I mean? So there's the paths are the
I was
choices.
just think too, because that just brought up like this thought of I think because this is also something that I experienced a lot with a lot of these kind of like I would say like you and me were talking about before, where it's like you have like the the light thing where it's like when you just wake up and it's like the surface level light and the deeper light, which like a lot of something I notice when it comes to like shadow work and stuff like that, that I've noticed in a lot of these more like surface light spiritual programs, coaches, whatever, is it's teaching you to do shadow work around things that were done to you, but not teaching you to do shadow work on your own shadows. And that is where I think people get really uncomfortable, is because they've done the shadow work around the shadows they're holding on to that were shadows that were created by the things done to them, but when their own shadows pop up, then that gets like too uncomfortable. And that's what I really notice is people have worked through, or at least like like people I work with and stuff like that, a lot of people work through the things done to them, or it's easier for them to go work through the shadow work on like the things done to them or like situations that happened or whatever. But when it comes to their own shadows, that's where it gets really hard, because like that's where we have to like look at, here's where I am continue enabling myself to continue this pattern, or where I guilt myself, or where all these other things. And it's like,
The
and
deep.
it's really, it's funny that all of this is coming up, because literally before I came on here, I made a thread post talking about like the reason why, if someone is feeling really powerless or less powerful in their business, a lot of times they're resisting the fears and the shadows coming up. They're trying to just push through the fears that are coming up, the shadows coming up, and just like, well, if I just push through and get to this point, then I'll feel powerful. But it's like our own shadows and darkness and like stuff like that is just energy that we can alchemize into power. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
something that we feel guilt around or shame or like push down and resist and try and act like it's not there, because it's going to still be there. And like you can either choose to have power over it or it have power over you. And that's going to determine the reality that you perceive yourself in.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's like, oh, I let this person go and I've forgiven them and I've done that. But have you forgiven yourself? Have you gone in there and known that everyone's a mirror? So what they were showing you is something that you feel about yourself, and you're like, oh my God, that means I actually. There has been times, and I'm literally like, somebody will treat me a certain way, and whenever, and I'll sit here, and all of a sudden, oh my God, I hate myself. Oh my God, and I'm like, okay, I can literally sit here and be like, oh, I hate what am I gonna freaking do about it? And that is what I've been doing for like 2 years. I'm like, okay, all right, this is a mirror. What am I gonna do about it? And I mean, let me tell you, I'm still struggling with certain stuff, but I mean, you see me. This, I mean, but like, it's this thing of like, okay, but if I have it in myself, I control myself. I can control that, and I can fix it. I do believe that there is some things where I've been getting frustrated lately. I'm like, why is this, still happening? I'm creating this, right? And this morning I had a full breakdown, and I was like, what the actual fuck? Full breakdown, do this stuff, and I came out of it after I went to the spiral of like, okay, I'm actually doing this to myself, whatever, da, 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 and I came out of it, but I chose to go there and be like, this is me doing this, but why? But why? And I figured it out, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this needs, and sometimes it's just a little tweak, and we think it's going to be like a huge thing, so we don't even want to try. We don't even want. It's like, oh, that's just going to be way too much for me to deal with, so I'm not going to even.
And I
Yeah.
think too, it's like the act of like journaling all of that out, or sitting in meditation and like feeling it in your body and letting it come up, like that is the work though. Like I think people think get overcomplicate the work. Like they
Yeah.
think, okay, I'm gonna journal on it, or I'm gonna sit here and like feel it in my body and like find where it lives and stuff like that. But then what do I do with it? Like how do I let it go? Like again, it's like focusing on the how do I, and they, instead of just trusting, like, well, what if just the journaling is the thing that releases it? Or what if you can just
Scream.
like scream and that releases it, or like feel it in your body and then just sit in stillness and trust that your body knows how to move that energy out
Yeah.
of,
Or
like,
like just admitting it. That
yeah,
part of admitting it. Like there's times where I feel like like I was like, okay, I hate my, like admitting that, and then all of a sudden things got, because it was like I stopped trying to not
yeah,
admit that this was a thing, and sometimes it just needs to be heard, and then it's like, oh, thank you for acknowledging me. I'm gonna leave now.
yeah. It's like it's just a lot of these things just need to be acknowledged, and like sit there and journal it out, or sit there in stillness and like give it just space to be like felt and like acknowledged in your body. Like that is the work, and it's not any more
Or voice
complicated
notes.
than that.
You can
Yeah,
voice
or
note it.
voice notes, or like whatever, whatever resonates with you. But like that is the work. There's not. the only thing that comes after that is just repeating it when it comes up again. It's like there's not, I think people think that, okay, I do that, but then what? Then like if
Yeah.
it comes up again, you just do it again. Like there's no like
Yeah.
magical like wisha wisha like thing
Yeah.
that you do.
Like
Like
the bewitched thing, like
yeah, like you
like
don't like it's again like I just
because
people
yeah.
get caught up in the how and it's like just trust yourself that when you like sit down and do it that like you'll then know what to do. Like I think it's just this like we've been conditioned in society to like not trust ourselves with anything and constantly outsource to everything else, and it's like if you just do it without having to know how it's going to work, how exactly you're going to do it, like just do what feels right for you to do now, and then the next thing that feels right to do after that will come to you, and then again and again and again, instead of getting so hung up on, well, what am I going to do 10 steps after I do this first thing? Like you don't need to know that right now.
Yeah. It's
So
hard. I'm still dealing with
yeah,
that,
it's
but
hard. And like, yeah, it's like
no,
I
but that's one thing I've taken from you where you
yeah,
were like, Virginia, just and I'm like, all right, so what's gonna happen now? Future's in the future, past is in the past, now is now. Like now is what's important. Like I literally can't I mean, like you can do a few things to plan and whatever, but yeah, like when it comes to some of this stuff, you just have to just be like, what will now? Because that is what will shape the future. The
especially
now.
like even with the planning, like one thing that I've learned in my own like journey and like with being a generator and like having the undefined head and ajna and like I have an undefined root too. Every time I
Hmm.
try and plan, it doesn't go to plan.
Me
Like my
either.
intuition's like, haha, that's funny. Like here's the
Yeah.
actual plan when you get there. And it's so it's kind of like, okay, I even when I do plan, it's like very loose planning. Like I do not make myself stick to the plan if my intuition is like, this is actually what feels right at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. And that's for almost every sign though. Like I mean like if you think about it,
Yeah.
even no matter if you're defined or undefined or whatever, it's like we're so conditioned to do shoulds, right? So let's
Hmm.
say I have a to-do list and
Yeah.
it's full of shoulds and you don't even think about that. So you wake up and your body's like, I really let's go do this, right? And it's I mean, even the thing is like, oh, I'm supposed to go here today, but it's telling me to go here, but you go here, you meet this person, and all of a sudden this happens, that kind of stuff. So operating more on the intuition on that, whether you're a generator, projector, even if you're a reflector, just
Yeah.
going by the, because everyone has the intuition, by going by that, when you go by that, by the body or the intuition, it takes out the analytical mind and the shoulds.
Yeah.
The body doesn't have a should, it's just does.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think too, it's like even people who have like defined mind centers, and this is like a big thing that I talk about with especially like generators and manifesting generators who have defined mind centers is yes, you have that more analytical, processing whatever gift, but there's a time and a place to use it. It's like
Hmm.
you use that once you're in the moment. You don't use it ahead of time because then when you're doing that, you're bypassing your sacral, your strategy, you're bypassing your authority. And at the end of the day, like your strategy and authority is ultimately the thing guiding you in the present moment. And like that's something that it's so different than how we've been like conditioned like in society and like how you achieve success and stuff like that like we're all going through the humbling process and like the letting go process, like it's a
All of
constant
us.
reminder, and like that's it's knowing that it is going to feel like uncomfortable and like free falling. Like with my business, like I have no idea what I'm going to be doing 6 months from now in my business.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a plan. I have like ideas and like concepts, but like I'm going to all strategize when it gets to that point. And I think in the past I used to try and come up with like a 6 month plan, what a year plan, and every time I did that I never stuck to it because I can't, my sacral can't respond 6 months ahead of time or one year ahead of time, and I might get sacral responses to ideas, but I that doesn't mean it's necessarily the right time that now I need to go and plan it out because I don't have a
Yeah.
divine head or Ashna center. I can't like just go plan it out. Like the universe will give me the next plan when it's the right time. And that can, as someone who's been conditioned to like plan a lot and like be very strategic and all this other stuff, doing it where it's like, okay, I have these kind of like ideas or visions for what I might want to do 6 months from now, or what I got a sacral response for an idea that I'm going to be doing later on in the future of my business, but I don't know necessarily when that's going to be or like what to do next. Like having to let go of all of that does feel like a chaotic way of doing something, because a lot of us have been conditioned to be like, you have to plan everything out. Or like when I went to like business school, like I did a whole semester where I had to write like a 60 plus page business plan.
Oh
Where like
God.
now I would like never do that. But it's like I was
Yeah.
like taught a very more old paradigm traditional hyper masculine way of doing business where like everything needs to be planned. You need to know every single detail ahead of time. Like there's no room for like just vibes and intuition. Where like now my whole
Yeah.
business is like vibes
Vibes.
and intuition is what makes it work though, because when I try and plan or strategize and structure every single thing out ahead of time, like I get stressed out and then I get stuck in my head, and then like I waste a lot of time and energy that way. And even though it feels chaotic and comfortable sometimes to let go of those reins, it flows a lot better. And I think
Yeah.
that's another thing is, yeah, like going by your design and your intuition is going to feel kind of uncomfortable and
Oh
chaotic.
God. For anyone, like Edward for literally is a splenic projector, right? It's like he just knows. And he's like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? And I think this is this part where you said right there about how you were like, there's no room for vibes, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, and this let's say somebody who does plan or can plan a little bit more than us floating in the wind, but or like, you know, the people can that respond instead of or who initiate instead of respond, whatever, right? But this is the thing. Let's say you do make a 60-page plan, right? And you have this whole planned out and all this stuff, and you're doing like dee, 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 and then this other thing comes, right? And it could be better and it could be whatever, but it doesn't go with your plan and you're not flexible, and then you push that plan away. So not everyone needs to be like you know, a generator who has a sacral or whatever, you know, like that. But it's a thing of like not being flexible at all with your business or relationships and having to go. That's just the thing right there with life. And that is the deconditioning right there. It's just generators. We just have it more of like we literally have to respond. Like we cannot initiate. It's like, oh, so we're gonna have to wait. So some people like a manifester, they initiate. So it's like that. But if they initiate something and then they hold on to the vision of that and not let themselves let go after the initiation process and put it on to somebody else or have it do like that, then they get stuck in that where they're like, I already made a plan. You know what I mean? Like we make a plan. Like, no, the plans, like what were you saying? It wasn't plan. It was like, just kind of like a structure, like a loose structure. So there's like a, at least a, like a road, maybe not fully paved, but at least there's not like overgrown grass that you can see a little bit, but
Yep.
knowing that like going this way or that way. And I think that's the whole deconditioning in this whole new paradigm, in the whole new earth, in how everything's doing it, and following your heart and your soul and your intuition is literally letting go of the plan.
Yep.
Letting go of the plan, because what if something better comes up and you're so in your plan and it's like that actually would not it logically this means that this isn't going to get me towards the money way, and then it's like, but you know, this is just advice for everyone of just flow more. There's nothing wrong with having like you have a basis plan. It's like I have a business. You know, I actually want a few offering, you know, but being flexible in that plan of having like, oh, which offering am I going to have this month? Because there's one you're doing right now. You're doing Jupiter, but it's right now this is Jupiter time. Next month there's no point to have, you know, like,
Yep.
and like last year, and like if you launched that in January, that would have made no sense because it
Yep.
wasn't, it was for like 6 months. So those are the things too of like, I have a bare bones. Like I have these offers. I want to do one-on-ones. I want to do this and I want to do that. All right. But what those actually are, or if they change throughout the business, or they whatever, or they change, and this is the same thing too with like doing life. Like say you have hobbies or you have things that you want to build, or like you have a house you want to build or whatever. And you're like, oh, it has to be this specific thing when this other thing, this person gives you like actually the land and all this stuff. And you're like, well, it's not this that I had, but I could have this whole house. I could build it my way. Having that as like the compass and the guide to that of just letting go, the surrender. Oh,
Yeah.
surrender.
It's like realizing that like everything we do is connected to everything indirect, whether it's directly or indirectly. And I think the thing is that we have compartmentalized different areas of our life to be like, oh, if I work out, it only affects like my fitness. If I sit on the computer and like type out a bunch of content ideas, that only affects my business. Like if I like things like that, and it's like, but they all,
Separation.
yeah, they all impact each other. And that's why it's like doing this sort of like spiritual work and stuff like that is going to directly make your business better, even if it doesn't seem related. Because a lot of times it's like not that people aren't doing the right things, it's that they don't believe that it's gonna work for them. Like,
Yeah, or that it's
there's,
relevant. Yeah.
yeah, like I talk a lot in human design about like there's two different parts to like embodying your human design. There's like obviously the action part where you actually act in alignment with your human design, but then there's believing that it can work for you that way. And that's where I think a lot of people like mess up is like, okay, yeah, I'm following my sacral and like it works a little bit here and there, but you're not fully believing though that doing that is like the best way
Yeah.
for you. And so you keep experiencing like, you know, like trink little like sprinkles of like things, you know, flowing and happening and working when you could be having like a whole like waterfall of things
Yeah.
like flowing to you and working and happening if you truly believed like, yes, I can not plan things ahead of time and I can just follow my sacral in the moment and trust it all unfold, and that'll work a lot better for me than having to like know everything in advance or like have expectations or like plan things or structure things and all this other stuff. And it's just kind of, I think we're getting, especially with like Pluto and Aquarius, we're like,
Hmm.
I think everyone's kind of like they're so over the like doing it the traditional structured way that everyone
Yeah.
is at least willing to explore what if I just do it this way that I'm feeling called to do it.
What if what if I just go down that path? This other
Yeah.
one is actually suffocating me.
Yeah.
And so if I go this place and I get suffocated over here, I was being suffocated over here. So it's the same. But what if
Yeah.
I could breathe over here?
Yeah.
Like we're all like, oh my God, why I cannot do this anymore. I cannot this I cannot keep pushing down my intuition. I cannot keep, giving this person the 40th chance of the day. I just cannot run my business like this. Like I cannot get up in the morning. I just, and so people, you're right, are willing to try another way. And sometimes and that's why taking that the fact that failure isn't actually a bad thing, that not getting it right the first time isn't a bad thing because you learn. Like I've literally spent the last 6 months being like, it has just been fail and crumble and stuff. And I'm like sitting here right now on this podcast and be like, well, at least I know what I don't want. And that is so beautiful.
Yeah. It's like every single thing, even if it doesn't go your way, is like a gift or a lesson or a piece of guidance for you. Like I am a line 3 in human design, so like at this point I'm like I literally don't believe in failures or mistakes because it taught me something. Like I recently went through like a really big like line 5 like trial and error lesson in my business where like I could look at it as like, oh my God, that was a mistake, that was a failure. But if I hadn't gone through that, it wouldn't have I wouldn't have been able to see what I actually needed to see and know. And it's like things not working out according to your expectations aren't a failure. It's like, what can you learn from that? And I think that approach in business too has really helped me because helps me move on a lot faster too. Because I think a lot of people just like marinate in the failure or the thing that didn't work
Mm.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And like take the lesson and like move on. Like you gotta keep moving. Like it's not like if you it's like when you get a scab and you keep reopening it. Like that's what you're doing
Yeah.
when you just sit there and constantly think about, well, this didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen, or this didn't work out, or like yada yada yada. It's like, okay, well, what is it teaching you? And then move on. And like
Yeah.
let it like close up and then it'll be like it was never there before. Because if we keep like dwelling on it, it's gonna it's gonna be like the main thing that we keep seeing and focusing on instead of just
Yeah,
being
and that's the reality that you
yeah.
create, and it's hard. Like I have to admit, like over the last year of like trying to embody this has been a lot, but it's so worth it. Like I know there's times now where like things will come and I will sit and and sometimes giving yourself a few minutes to be like, that sucked, you know but the marination is the part of where you're like you've got to move out of that. So we're
Yeah.
not saying like, don't, oh, that sucked, let's move like right on. No, you give yourself time to like, obviously with the scab, it's bleeding. Like, okay, it's bleeding before it scabs up, it's bleeding out. You can't just be like, excuse me, can you just scab up right now? And the body's
Yeah.
like, excuse me, I have a process. But what happens? The body stops bleeding, right? And then the scab forms and then it heals. But what happens when we take the scab off? The blood comes again. And the body's like, excuse me, I just did this.
Yeah.
So it's like, letting that blood, flow, or putting like a napkin on it or whatever, having that. And obviously, let's say this is your leg and there's a gash and you're screaming and you're crying. It's not like you're just like, oh, I just, perfect example. Yesterday I was at the river and my feet were just completely frozen. And so I cut my foot open. I had no idea for a little while. Then I figured it out and I was like, oh God, I'm bleeding. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to affect me. My walk, my things. Like if I would have just bought shoes, like, I mean, all this stuff was going for about 5 minutes. And I was like in the water. I am so happy I'm in the water, but my foot is bleeding. And I was like, whatever. And I could have so I gave myself those like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I'm upset. I am bleeding and it's this stuff. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to get out. We put a thing on it. And last night I put like some stuff on it. I went for a walk today. I changed my socks and whatever. So I still did that. But I had to give myself that moment of like, this sucks right now. And then I have to let it go. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, it's fine. At least I'm in the river, at least a thing. And then later on where I'm like angry, I let it go then and then just move forward through that. So know that letting that go. And I'm sure when you had that failure, you were like, this is the worst. And then I'm like, all right, what do I do about it? You let yourself feel through it. Because if you trap the emotion too that you come through, it's not healthy either.
Yeah.
But you're like, okay, what am I going to do about it? And then you realize, oh yeah, here I'm going to do this. My business, this has actually worked out great. But pushing that down, the spiritual bypassing of pushing things down too, let yourself have that moment. But know that it's a moment and not a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's like the reality check too that like just because there are people who you might perceive as like being really successful in their business is successful and stuff like that doesn't mean that it's perfectly successful all the time. Like I don't think anyone reaches a point in their business where they never experience any sort of mistake
Or
or
problem or any of that.
like anything like that. Like every single person that I've talked to who has a lot of experience and a lot of years of running really successful businesses, they still reach points where like something's not working or something doesn't work as well as it used to or they just don't want to do a certain thing anymore or whatever. And it's like I think that's the other thing too is people expect to be able to get to a point where there's never any problems anymore. Everything just goes swimmingly and stuff like that. And I don't think that's again it's trying to make your business be just this purely spiritual thing that doesn't involve human experiences. Same
Yeah.
thing with like if you
Human
take business
experience.
out of it, people who want to just live in the love and light and like
Yeah.
not have a human experience. And I think part of that too is because of I don't think it's as much of a thing anymore, but like at least when I was getting into business, it was like all these coaches talking about like, you know, the only reason why you're experiencing problems is because you're not expecting to not experience, like people acting like they never have any sort of, like
Human.
their business is constantly like their business is constantly perfect and constantly thriving and constantly growing, and acting like you can't have a thriving business and experience a problem at the same time. And I think
Yeah.
that created this conditioning in a lot of people to think that when they experience uncertainty or a problem or things not working, oh well, something's wrong, and then they crumble. And it's like, that's not, like,
It's
you
just
can't things,
experience.
yeah, like it's just an experience. It's like things are going to happen outside of your control. It's like, okay, so then what energy do you need to hold then to bring it back into whatever flow you want it to be in, instead of obsessing over trying to control this thing, and because you're making it mean something and like all this other stuff. And I think that's the other thing, is people trying to make like meaning into everything. And it's like, the reality is that like we can't ultimately know the why or the reason for everything all the time.
Yeah.
Like, in,
Sometimes just flow through it.
yeah,
Even
you
if
just
there
have to,
is a reason. And
yeah,
you're not saying that there's not a reason. It's just
yeah,
saying that sometimes, as the human being here, we're just not supposed to know the reason. And us trying to figure it out. And I feel like I want to say this too, with this, where you were saying that, is like, I know you had a post too where it's like, not everything, that happens needs to be like examined. So let's say everything does happen for a reason, right? But it's like, okay, well, why didn't I turn down that street? It doesn't matter, because I actually didn't get in an accident, right? So knowing that you can believe that sometimes things just happen, and the things just happening, that's the reason they needed to happen.
yeah,
These things just needed to happen.
yeah,
So trying to figure it out. I do believe everything happens for a reason. And sometimes
yeah,
that reason is that it just needed to happen so I didn't get hit by a car, or that I
yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
Or like, I do think that everything happens for a reason, but I think that not every reason for something happening is deep.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sometimes,
It's not deep.
sometimes too, things happen for a reason because it was actually someone else's main reason, and you were just the side supporting character in the
Yeah.
reason. Like, not every reason is necessarily about you. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I think
And
that's,
that's why there's not separation. Like,
yeah,
it's,
and
we're
I,
all helping each other on the path of wherever we're trying to get to. Yeah.
yeah, like maybe like you turning down that street, maybe it was because so you don't get in an accident. Maybe it had something to do with so the person behind you got to work quicker, or like something like
Hmm.
that. Like, it could sometimes, it's not always about like us, it's about some person we don't know or whatever. And I think that's and I think that that sometimes too is a sneaky way that we outsource our intuition
Hmm.
and our trust, is we want every to, if something happens outside of the norm, oh, what's the deeper reason, like. And it's like, you have to kind of like just let go. Like,
Yeah.
can you trust that things are happening in alignment without you always knowing the reason or why something shifted and things like that, and just let go? Because I think like too, like, do we always want to know the reason why though? Like, I don't want to. If I knew
Yeah.
every single time I did something different when I'm driving was to protect me from a wreck, and I knew that, I think that would actually be worse off for my
Yeah.
mindset in my nervous
Yeah.
system, because it would probably make me scared every single time I got into a car. Like,
Yeah.
if the universe told me, I just made you turn down the street because you were going to get in a really bad wreck if you kept going this way. Like, if I knew that every single time, I would like be dry. It would not be good for my mental health. So I think that
Yeah.
sometimes too, it's like, even if there's a reason for everything, sometimes it's better off if we just don't know the reason and we just
Yeah.
flow with where it's guiding us.
Yeah, just the guidance of the thing of like, we're always where we're always where we're supposed to be at every given moment. And
Yeah.
whether that's to help this person do that, or it's to help us do that, or it's to help a plant grow,
Yeah.
or any of that. Yeah, yeah, it's really about that. It's really about just, and sometimes, yeah, you will know and be like, oh, I need to go deeper with that. But when it doesn't, and that's, intuition will tell you too if you have to go deeper.
Yeah.
Like, literally, you'll know. So, I mean, when it comes back to the intuition, I think the biggest thing for us is getting back into our bodies, letting go of the thing and really just being like, okay, the mind has gotten poisoned within an inch of its life. We've got to give it a break so it can repair itself from not being crazy. So I would like to know your advice or nugget of wisdom. I love saying the nugget of wisdom for anyone. And I mean, you talk about intuition a lot, but like something you would like to say for anyone on the path, starting, deep seasoned, or any of that. What would be your wisdom nugget?
Yeah. I think on top of like the intuition and trusting yourself is to like have more fun and like not take it. I know that sounds like so surface level and
No,
basic compared to what we just talked about, but it's true. It's like
no, it's
it's
so
I know that
perfect.
a lot of like the stuff in our spiritual journey is serious, but it's really easy to start making everything super serious and not
Mm-hmm.
realize it. And it's like having more fun makes it easier to let go and surrender and go with the flow and follow your intuition. And I
Yeah,
think like that's like just a huge piece because it's part of like the human experience. Like having more fun human experiences, even if it's just like the whole romanticize like the little things in your day or like things like that. Like those little things to me make like such the difference. And I think that it's so simple and that's probably why we like overcomplicate it so much because
yeah,
we think
I
that it can't
agree.
be that simple as simple as just like having fun, but it like really is. And I think that for anyone who does really struggle with like surrendering and just letting go and going with the flow, start trying to see where you can have more fun. I think that will make then that process a lot easier.
Yeah, it loosens the grip a little bit to
Yeah.
not being so serious about everything and then just really going with the flow. That's beautiful because, like, literally, and as adults too, it's like, oh, you can't have fun anymore. You're not even a kid. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, we can do whatever we want. And if fun's gonna do it, then sign me up for that. And it doesn't have to be. It's whatever's fun for you too. I mean, just because rock climbing's fun for some people, for me, that's like a nightmare. Do what's fun for you, and don't do what somebody else is like. Oh, that's fun. No, do what's fun for you, which will be flowy, and you can look. Oh God, girl, yes, yes, I love it. So I will put our stuff in the show notes if you guys want to get a hold of us or have any questions or any of that. But this was such a beautiful conversation, and I hope somebody has resonated and, maybe have some more fun. So I am telling, I have been ever, wow. I hope everybody has a beautiful now.